Good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of our symposium. We're so glad you could join us again today. Once again, we want to thank all of our amazing committee and volunteers for helping make this happen, as well as our sponsors. Thank you guys so much. So we're continuing on our theme of advocacy. Yesterday, we heard from some amazing women telling us about how they are shaping not only their field, but also their community. And today we're going to continue that theme of advocacy, but looking at how you can be an advocate in your own life. We'll start off our session with a panel discussion going with this topic, followed by a keynote with Jody Davis. And we'll end it with a networking in our virtual platform GatherTown, help us feel like we're actually there in person.
So we want to encourage you to participate to get the most out of the event. Make sure you tag us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter using our hashtag. This will also increase your chances of winning some very cool giveaways. Other ways to enter the raffle is also by, for example, submitting your questions. So participate in the conversation and make sure to join our networking session later at 12 p.m. So the networking session is hosted in GatherTown. That's another platform. It's this virtual space where we can all meet and video chat. And it starts at 12 p.m. and we have a link here that will take you to this platform. You can use the QR code, but GatherTown recommends joining from a browser. So we recommend just typing this link into your browser. We will make sure to post it later too. With that, Pen, are you ready to introduce our panelists?
Yes.
Perfect.
Great. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Women's STEM Symposium. My name is Pen, and I'm one of the committee members. And today we're going to start another panel on advocacy in life. We have 3 panelists. Dr. Rosalin Arends. She is a senior director at AstraZeneca in Gaithersburg and clinical pharmacology and quantitative pharmacology department. And our second panelist is Madison Wyatt. She is a senior data scientist at a defense contractor system and technology research in Boston. Our third panelist is Dr. Paola Jaramillo. She is an assistant professor in the Department of Weapons, Robotics, and Control Engineering at United States Naval Academy. So, next page. So please feel free to use the Q&A tab at the bottom of the screen to post questions and about other questions. Right, we can get started. So let's just go around the table first, introduce ourselves, say hello to all our attendees. And meanwhile, for all our attendees, please don't forget to post questions in the tab. So I have Madison, Rosalin, and Paola in an order. So do you want to start first, Madison?
Sure. So yeah, I can introduce myself. So let's see, I grew up actually in Maryland, so I'm excited to be back. I was, talking earlier about that. And then I went up to college for my undergraduate degrees in physics and math at RPI, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute up in New York, up in upstate New York, and then stayed for my master's in applied math. And so since then I moved over to Boston, and now I'm working for as you mentioned, a defense contractor. We also have some work down in Maryland and in Virginia. So, I still get to come around a little bit. And so, here at STR, I am a senior data scientist. So I'm leading a team, a larger team that's working on some national security problems, applying machine learning and other statistical modeling to those challenging problems.
Cool. Then, Dr. Arends, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I'm actually originally from the Netherlands, and that's where my journey started. I actually got a master's there in biopharmaceutical sciences, and I decided I wanted to come to the States to do a research project. And so I did that. and really liked it so much in Seattle at University of Washington, where I went for this research project, that I decided to stay there. And that's where I got my PhD in pharmaceutical sciences. And after that, you know, I worked for lots of different companies. I worked for small companies, mid-size as well as large, focusing on clinical pharmacology and pharmacometrics. So it's all about trying to understand the pharmacokinetics and the pharmacodynamics of new drugs, and really trying to capture that with mathematical models, and then use simulations to make predictions to then make drug development more efficient, and to really find that perfect dose and to really improve the benefit risk of new drugs. So right now, I'm at AstraZeneca in R&D in Gettysburg, and I lead a team focusing on those disciplines, and I cover both the neuroscience and the microbial science portfolio. So also covering some of the COVID-19 projects. So very, very busy times.
Cool. And then we have Dr. Jaramillo.
Hi everyone, can you hear me okay? Sure. Okay. Well, my journey also started outside the United States. I'm originally from Colombia, South America. And I came to I always knew that I was going to pursue my higher education at in the United States. So I came to Connecticut, and I initially started at a community college just for my first couple of years. And then with engineering science, I also knew that I wanted to do engineering, just wasn't sure which engineering. And then I pursued my bachelor's in biomedical and mechanical engineering at the University of Hartford. So from there, I worked with the state of Connecticut for a year or so, and then I decided that I wanted to do my master's. So I went ahead and ended up at Rutgers University doing my master's in mechanical, focusing on more of a material science perspective. So I was actually doing, looking at carbon nanotubes at that time. And then once I finished that, I went back to work, and then I realized that I really wanted to pursue my PhD because I really enjoy working I was working for the College of Technology in Connecticut. So I realized that I needed a PhD in order to further my career in that area of it, in education. So I went to Virginia Tech. I ended up at Virginia Tech, and it was, I started thinking, okay, I'm gonna go back and do either more of the material science, or I will pursue something more traditional mechanical engineering, but I actually end up pursuing more in the controls, dynamics and control systems. So that was the area of focus with the application of a biological system. So pretty much I focus on skeletal muscle, and I pursue a series of animal studies for looking at implementing linear and adaptive controllers to stimulate muscle and to regenerate muscle and muscle nerves. So that was what I did for my doctoral degree. While finishing the doctoral degree, I got an email from the Department of Weapons, and at that time it was Weapons and Systems Engineering at the Naval Academy, and they asked me to apply for a position that was opening. And I reply and I say, well, thank you, but I don't do weapons. And they say, no, the military does the weapons. We actually are looking for a biomedical background and a person that works on bio systems. So I was like, okay, that I know how to do. So that's how I ended up at the Naval Academy. And right now we changed our name to make it a little bit more descriptive. So we are Weapons, Robotics, and Controls Engineering. At the Naval Academy, I focus on biomechanics. And I traditionally, the performance, physical performance, injury prevention. And I also do a portion of soft robotics. So the soft robotics implementing controllers using fluidic artificial muscles. So that has been my research work at the Naval Academy. in addition to some other more risky projects that I have taken over. So trying to have that, you know, as a faculty, you try to have that balance between doing more of a traditional track of research versus more risk, a little bit of risk until you get to a stage where you can take, you know, once the tenure process ends, you are able to take more risk and open more your background and challenges. So make it more challenging and fun. So that is where I am right now.
That's a really cool path where you go from biomedical, bioengineering, and mechanical to weapons.
Yes.
Okay. So I guess we can get started with the questions. So first I'll start with like a really broad question. What practices help you to maintain a work-life balance? I know you're all really successful in your field. And at the meantime, how do you balance your work with life?
I could start. It's just Rosalin. Yeah. I mean, it's not easy. I can say that it's not easy, but you can put certain rules in, you know, to really keep that balance. First of all, I think it is extremely important to focus on keeping that balance. I think it benefits, of course, your personal life, but also your work life to really keep perspective. But, you know, I think in the end, it's all about developing practices that are making you efficient to really, you know, not waste too much time on certain things at work or that is at home. So, you know, so for example, at work, you know, it's very easy to have lots of meetings in our positions. And I think you really need to try to limit those, to really call a meeting when it's required, you know, make them not maybe an hour, but maybe just half an hour. Really also be selective which ones you do attend, because people will invite you to lots of meetings. So I think that's very important to really, you know, not sort of get drawn into spending lots of times on things that you could probably, you know, handle differently in a more, you know, time efficient way. And then when it comes to your personal life, I think, yeah, to really have those rules of that you do spend time on certain things, like you definitely make sure that you take time for dinner, you know, that you don't always cook, you know, that you, you know, that you're sort of easy on yourself, you know. So I think putting certain rules in and creating a certain regularity is very important. And also, especially now with this pandemic, working from home, it's even more easy to get drawn into work and to really keep those rules and to plan for fun stuff and to go for walks, etc. So I think just planning and just, you know, putting certain rules in, I think is critical. Yeah.
Yeah, especially when you have work, like a family, like you really have to prioritize
Yep.
your work, and then just really just do the most and plan for things like really efficiently. So yeah.
Yep.
Anyone else have?
I agree. Oh, this is Paola. I agree wholeheartedly with what Rosalin said. You become, with a family, you become really efficient and trying to maximize your time. And I heard many times from many people about how to say no, and it's a complete sentence. You don't have to give an explanation sometimes, and you have to be, I agree, you have to be picky at what you commit and what meetings you attend. In my case, what committees you want to be a member of, and try to balance that. I'm still in early in my career, and I have to ensure that my family, I have two small children, under 3, so it's very challenging. And to add to that, I actually have one of my children is a special needs, and she requires extra care. So it's a lot of maintenance, right? We see from neurology to gastroenterology to physical therapy, occupational therapy. So it's like a host of appointments, and you have to ensure that you have the flexibility to do that. And what is really important. The nice thing I have to say about being a faculty is the flexibility that it can give you. And I know some jobs are more demanding in the sense of you have to be here at this time, but in my work, I really can make my own schedule. And can balance that. I think I have the ability to balance that, that has that flexibility to balance things more so than if I were in a different setting. So I'm very grateful to that. But yeah, it is important to have dinner, even if you order, and it is important to make that time. So we try to do that, my husband and I, to ensure that it's a controlled chaos in our household pretty much. And also committed because I enjoy my work, right? I enjoy my research. I enjoy working with my students and teaching my courses. So there is nothing wrong with being ambitious about that, but also keeping in mind that your family is important and is priority, and you need to really keep that in perspective, and that allows you to be really efficient with your time.
Yeah, and especially during pandemic, we got to spend more time with our family because we're basically at home 24/7. So that's one good thing about it.
Just to add something a little, I wholeheartedly agree with everything else that's said, but the one thing I would add is that I think it's important to, take time to teach the rest of your team what you're doing and making sure that they're trained and able to, take on tasks, which allows you to delegate or to share, a workload. Because one thing we have on our team is that we say, if you want to go fast, you can go alone. But if you want to go far, you need to go together. And so like in the short term, it's definitely easier and quicker to just do it yourself. You know how to do it, and you don't worry about it. But in the long term, you're going to find that then you're the only person that knows how to do that thing, whatever it is, or a set of things. And then, when push time comes, you sort of have to give up the personal things, your family time, because you are the single person, the point of failure, who knows how to do something. So I would, certainly recommend even starting early on when you're just out of college and, you're, sort of early in your career and you maybe aren't even delegating to other people, is just, learn how to share your tasking across a group of people, and, making sure that everyone in your group, yourself included, knows how to do what every other person is sort of working on. And not that you have to be a jack of all trades type of thing, but, at least have some awareness that you can, when it comes time for you to need to take time off, that you can feel comfortable and that you trust that, someone else could take on the work that you're doing.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Madison. Yeah, this is very important that you delegate. It's not always easy because, as you were saying, yeah, you can maybe do it faster yourself, but, learning to delegate early and really have that other support important, so you can create more time for other things for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, we actually have a question related to this. So we have a question from Cecilia. She's wondering, what practices do you find important in fostering a positive mentor-mentee relationship? Like, it's important to split the work, and how do you build a positive relationship with your mentor or mentee?
I think it's important to have a group of mentors where you can have some you will have a closer relationship with, and some it will be a more checking in basis. But I think it is important to, so I have mentors. I will always have mentors from when I was a student and even now. And I check on them, and I check on, okay, I want you to tell me what is it that I'm doing wrong, that I'm delaying, that I should move forward, and so it at least in the career, I don't have mentors to guide me through my personal life, but in the career aspect, these mentors are really, some are women that have children, just like I have, that they are along in their career, so they can relate to what I'm going through. Some are men that have seen me move up and see my progress throughout many years, and so that allows me to have all these different perspectives and to listen. I have been always very intentional in listening to advice, and to be flexible about the choices I make, not to be so focused on this is the path that I must take, and this is the only way that I want to do it. So therefore, if it doesn't work out, I'm just going to, collapse. You have to be very flexible, and you have to, I think, listening to your mentors is very important. How do you get a mentor? I try to, if there is somebody that I really admire, that I want to emulate some aspects of what they have done, I just approach them. And I have mentors that are provosts, I have mentors that are department chairs, I have mentors that are just full professors in another institution, I have my graduate advisors. So you just tap on all those resources. I have mentors that we never work together or have any sort of relationship outside of the fact that we know each other, and she might be ahead, and she might be doing something completely different, but she can is easy to that person is approachable, and you are able to tap on them and ask them for that advice that you might need sometimes. And also, I like criticism. I like when I ask a person, okay, tell me, is this what I'm doing? Does it make sense? Is this the right thing to do, or not the right thing to do, but will you be, if you were in this position, would this be the decisions you will be making? And just get their take on a perspective that sometimes when you are too into it, you might lose that a little.
Thank you for sharing your mentor-mentee experience with us. Madison and Dr. Arends, do you want to add on anything on this?
Yeah, I can add and just say that I think for me, the one thing that's been really difficult but is really important is to not be afraid to ask questions. That say you don't understand something or that you need help, especially in a technical sense. It can be really, I find that, sometimes as a woman in a male-dominated field, I can feel like I'm not comfortable to ask questions. I need to sort of show that I'm, competent, and you kind of have to overcorrect for things like that. And I would just caution you to just not do that. Don't do it. And it's really difficult. And it's something that I think I work on all the time, but, especially with your mentor, is that's a person who is supposed to be there, who's understanding that you are already competent and you just are trying to get to, the next level technically or something like that. So, okay, maybe if you don't feel comfortable in your group setting, use that mentor as a person to say like, hey, I didn't understand why we are choosing this method, or I don't understand why this is happening. And that has been really helpful for me in, trying to remember that at least one person or a few people are, a safe space for asking questions that make you feel like you're stupid or something, because you're not.
Yeah, no, I can add to that. So, so I guess in my group, I really try to create an atmosphere of, open communication where it's okay to ask stupid questions, I guess. I mean, there really are no stupid questions. I think it's important to ask questions. So, that, really that we trust each other, and also to really help develop people is that you sort of have this combination of where you give them their own projects, where they really can do their thing. They can come to you and ask for questions, also reach out to other people outside of our group. And at the same time, sort of find places where people can collaborate together. So they learn that in the end, you cannot always take sole responsibility of things. Yes, you can have your own project where you can, sort of do your thing, but at the same time, where they learn how to work together and then, learn how to handle, I guess, criticism, but where you can also get very much praise. So I think in the end, people need to know that it's perfectly okay to make mistakes, right? This is how we learn, but you really need to create that, I guess you really have to create that atmosphere where people feel that if you make a mistake or if you ask a stupid question, it's perfectly okay. And that's, how they will really develop over time and then gain self-confidence, and they can get to that next level. Yeah.
And there's never stupid questions.
No. But I guess we sometimes think that is the case, right? So it's, I mean, it is always more important to really speak up. If you don't say anything, if you don't participate, that's worse.
Yeah, definitely. All right, we have a question from one of our anonymous attendee. She's wondering, how do you advocate for yourself and others, especially as women in STEM?
I can start with this one. At STR, we focus a lot on a few different types of, I'd say like advocacy, which is one, being a mentor is what we already have talked about. The second is being a sponsor, and this is a way that you can, maybe you're not a direct mentor, but you reach out and you try and find new opportunities for people around you. Maybe it's like a junior staff member or another woman, or really anybody that you're sort of looking out for them to say, hey, this new opportunity came up. I want to advocate for so-and-so to be, considered. And then the third is being an ally, which is just, being aware of, things that might be happening. Like, for example, if you're in a meeting and someone is getting talked over, or, you're sort of feeling like there's some non-inclusive behavior going on, then you can step up and say like, hey, I think we should, like, give this person a chance to talk, or in general, trying to sort of be a better ally for other women or for other underrepresented groups, etc. And so I think that figuring out how you could be one or many of those types of people for a number of people, right, it's very easy to be an ally. It's maybe you need a slightly more, I don't know, you need some rapport or something to be a sponsor, and then maybe you need some experience to be a mentor. But at any point in your career, you could be any number of those for somebody else. And so I think figuring out how to do that is a good way to advocate for both yourself, but also mostly for other people around you.
Dr.
Yeah, so, when it comes to my environment in the pharmaceutical industry, and AstraZeneca being a large company, I think it's important that you make sure people get visibility. So for people in my group, I think this is one of my tasks, to make sure they get visibility, because it's, it's such a huge group, and, a lot of talented people. So you really have to keep an eye out for what are those opportunities. And so there are always things going on, new initiatives, make sure that they do, present regularly on their work, those sorts of things. So really, make sure, again, that they're visible, because it's such a, huge environment, and there's so many different sciences that it can be a challenge, but that's really one of my tasks, to really make sure people do get an opportunity to showcase what they can do. And so in the end, communication is very important, presentation skills, all of that. But in the end, especially in a larger company, it can be a challenge to really make sure people do get noticed and have an opportunity to move forward in their career. When I was in smaller biotech, it was like 300 people, or mid-sized, like a couple of thousand, it was a lot easier. People right away had visibility. They had contact with, higher managers, even CEO, right? But in a company like AstraZeneca, that's a lot more challenging. 70,000 people globally, in Gettysburg, less, but still, we all work together now online. So again, that can be a challenge, but it's something that you have to keep working on, is really advocate, for your people and for yourself. Yeah.
Sometimes we just have to take the initiatives to start, say no, and then advocate for other people. What about Dr.? Do you want to add anything to?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yes, in my environment, I have to say that the Naval Academy does a great job, always keeping in mind, highlighting the mentorship aspect, the inclusivity aspect, the diversity aspect. We're really trying to instill to the student that, and it's really, it's very hard for them. And we instilled that since plebe year. That's the first year when they start. We call them plebes. And that class, when they come in, I am a plebe advisor, and we make sure when we introduce ourselves to tell them, okay, just the little subtle things that can make a difference. Like when you see a woman, if it's a faculty, they have a doctorate, so you have to address it as doctor or professor. You cannot just say ma'am. miss, right? Just because there is this, the students at the academy, they deal with the civilian life and with the military life, right? And they tend to sometimes forget that the civilian, the civilians are also very, they have to have some sort of respect. They are very focused on ranking, and they tend to deviate to that. So we have to ensure that they understand that it is important, and to highlight the importance of the faculty as well as the military. And that allows them also to recognize that in my case, that women are very active participants in STEM fields, right? You will be surprised to see some of the midshipmen that come to the academy that have never seen somebody, a female, in an STEM role, right? Or is the first one in their family to go to college, or they never been around somebody with a higher degree. So it is important to ensure that they are exposed to that. I really take it to heart the mentoring, just like Madison pointed out. You have to have an active role as well, and you can always have that. Just because I have mentors doesn't mean that I cannot be a mentor as well. And I really take into heart to mentor my students, male or female. I think it is important to ensure that they understand that, there is more to life than the military. There is more to life outside of the Navy. Sometimes they feel they are really sheltered, and they cannot relate to what the outside world is. So for me, that is very important. In addition to that, as all the assistant professors yard-wide at the academy, we are in constant communication. I made a point to have built a lot of relationships with them, and we do check on each other and make sure that we if there is somebody newer than me, I tend to say, okay, this is how you do things here, in this way to be successful. This is what you don't want to do. You try to pass on and kind of pay it forward, right? In that sense. So I never felt any sort of thinking me being an outsider, being not at the table. I think that my department does a good job on that in general. So, and again, I am the number 3 women, and this is the oldest department at the Naval Academy. So for me, I guess when you start in the engineering path, you will get used to be the one girl in the class. And I also see that with the female midshipmen, that usually the type of courses I teach, there are more controls, and you only see 1 or 2 women, and then the rest are men. So I think as you grow, you kind of get used to that aspect. But with that being said, you get used to, but you want to see more women in the field as well. So.
Yeah, usually as like the only woman in team, it makes us more willing to help other people when they're also women and or represented groups. So, right, we have another question from one of our anonymous attendee. She's wondering, what activities have you sought outside of work to help your career goals? I'm gonna start.
I like robotic competitions. I have to say, it's been a while since I done it, but I like to be judged in those with kids. It's fun. It's just inspiring to see the young minds doing this and starting at a young age to have that interested. So I really like to do that. I really like to be active at my for instance, at the Society of Mechanical Engineers, biomedical engineering. To me, it's just a fun way to contribute. I like to mentor people, to mentor young kids. I have judge competitions close to my church, or robotic competitions. I just, that involvement whenever I can. And I have to say, I haven't done it in probably in a couple of years, just because my kids have taken the time. But that's something I really enjoy. I think it's important to spark that interest, to motivate from a young age, and it's something that I really like to do.
Yeah, so it's Rosalin. Yeah, I mean, I guess activities, yeah, outside of work to further, benefit my career or just my overall life. I mean, to be honest, I haven't done a whole lot. I guess I haven't done a whole lot of that lately. It's just hard to find time for it. But but in the past, yeah, I mean, I would help out with different school activities for my kids. Yeah, because whatever extra time I had, I would tend to spend with my kids, and then through their school. But also I think in my field, in the biopharmaceutical field, I think you can get a lot of satisfaction participating in different conferences. So it's related to your field, but might not always be directly related to it. So you can, be on panels, or something like this, for example, we're doing today. I mean, those are all very enjoyable activities. And I think that they do further help you do your work as well. And at the same time, it's something completely different. So I think for my field, I think, just going to conferences, doing presentations and just meeting other people in your field, which can be very inspiring. Yeah.
Yeah, and speaking from a data science perspective, I think there's a lot of opportunities to learn outside of, outside of work, because you can always go, do a tutorial, or there's tons of new packages that are coming out, every day, especially surrounding some of the larger conferences that are, related to data science, things like NeurIPS and, and other sort of computer vision conferences. There are usually papers that come out of that, either right ahead of time or right afterwards. And, I'd like to try and peruse those and sort of understand, what is the state of the art. And, oftentimes, especially in computer vision, those are really fun papers to read, a lot of imagery, really easy to read, stuff like that. But, I think that, the other piece of that is, well, and also sometimes I think, I'll say one thing before I move on, is that it can be fun to do some data science projects that are sort of related to your outside life. Things like if you can look around your neighborhood and say, like, what could I do? What data could I find? Or, sort of project could I do that would make my community better, or something like that. And those can be kind of fun little side projects. It's not just, doing like a Kaggle competition where you have like no connection to it. And like, I live in a really close-knit neighborhood here in Boston called the North End. And, they shut down the streets for outdoor dining, starting with COVID last summer. And so it was kind of fun to, like, a project I did was like, how can you reroute traffic through the neighborhood, given that you've like shut down some of these streets, and sort of, exploring things like that. So that can be kind of fun. But the other thing I would say is, sometimes I think the best thing I could do for my career is do something that's unrelated. Painting, gardening, something that, keeps you from getting burned out, because burnout is very common, I think, especially in all STEM fields, but in my experience, especially in software and data science.
There are activities that's related to your career, that like going to conferences, read more papers. There are also activities you can do to that you can spend more time with your family, help the community. So we have a question from Kopri. For someone who is early in their career, what kinds of things can women advocate for in their workplace? I don't want to ask too much before making an impact, but also don't want to be taken advantage of.
I think it's important to always ensure that you are respected. I mean, that's not asking too much. If you feel that you are in any way being taken advantage of, you should put your foot down sooner rather than later. I think that you need to always ensure that what you are asking for or advocating for in your workplace is what is going to make you successful in your workplace, right? So to me, that's not asking too much. That's asking what you need, right? If you need For instance, in my field, if I need a space for my equipment, for my lab to be able to do my projects, I need that, and I will advocate for that. And if I get a no, or I get something that is not desirable, I will continue push for that. You shouldn't feel that you are asking too much. You are asking the tools that you need to make yourself successful. They hire you to be successful. They hire you because they saw in you that you can contribute to the company, to the institution, to the field that they had in, that to that area specific that you bring to the table. So they have to ensure that everything that you have around you will allow you to be successful. So don't never feel that, obviously I would love to have a driver that will drive me around, maybe jacuzzi in my office. I tell the Senate they should put some of those in the office. Those are ridiculous things. But if I am asking for a space for my projects, for a space for my students, for a reasonable loading in my semester, for participating in only 3 committees and that's it, so that I can have more time to work on my research and my paper. So, that's to me, that's advocating for yourself, for your best interest. And they should be, and in my case, the institution should back you up on that. And if not, you can easily provide the reasons why you need what you are requesting, right? And the whole point is to ensure that you are successful in your career, in your job.
Yeah, no, I can add to that. I think, when you're just starting in your line, in your work, you have to be careful that you don't sort of like feel like you have to do everything that they're asking you to do. As you were saying, you were hired because you add value, and they need you. But I think in the end, to really make this overall process, easier, I think it's very important you have a good relationship with your boss, with the person, that you report to. If you have a good relationship, then that person will make sure that you're being handled appropriately and that you're getting the work that you can handle, and that they don't, necessarily, overload you. So I think that's critical, to have a good relationship with your boss. And if you don't, then it's probably time to move on. So, because you don't want to be stuck in a job where you don't have a good relationship with the person that you report to. I think that's very important, in your career.
And maybe, I don't know, I feel like my whole life is like data driven, but I think that the best thing that I always recommend is just to keep really good track of what you're working on and what your time is. And also early on, try to get, experienced and sort of really understand how long it's going to take you to do a task. If someone gives you an open-ended task, really try to, calibrate your own, work to see how long it's going to take you, and keep track of those things. Things like sprint planning can be really helpful for keeping track of those, because if someone comes to you and says, hey, can you take on this extra, this extra project, you mentally, or maybe you can reference in your notes or something and say like, okay, this is how I have only this much extra time. If you need me to do this task, here are the things that I need to give up. And, trying to be more of a give and take, because sometimes things will come up and they'll say like, this is a priority, but I'm willing to let you give up, maybe something else that you are already working on. But it's hard to do that if you don't have a good sense of, one, what are you working on, and two, how long you think those things are going to take you. If people are coming in and asking for like something that might just take you an afternoon, you might say, okay, if I look at my schedule, I think I can still hit my deadlines without having to work extra hours or, take away time from myself in order to do this task. And that would be something that you should say, sure, I can do that task for you. But if you're looking and, you don't have that extra afternoon based against all the other tasking, as Rosalin was saying, is like, this is a time where you need to be able to say to your boss that like, I'm willing to do that, but these things are not going to get done in the deliverable time that, that we were originally expecting, or I'll need an extra week to do another task. I think that those are like easy ways to start advocating for yourself, to say, and you're not coming out of nowhere, right? Especially if you can somehow document your tasking in, a shared space, like like sprint planning or things like that. it becomes really easy to show whoever's asking you to do tasking that you're fully tasked or you have some extra time. But then, sort of on another vein, I'll just say that if there's things that you want to advocate for that are not, involved, like related to being overtasked, things like, oh, I feel people are talking over me in meetings, or, I need an office or something like that. Sometimes those things can be easier done in groups. If there's someone else that you find in your office that, it's feeling the same way, or, might have a similar issue, I can find that sometimes it's easier to, say that, we have this thing that we'd like to advocate for, we need a separate, I don't know, space or something like that. That sometimes that can be a little bit easier as well.
You have a follow-up question on that from Sonny Sopa. How do you decide when you can say no? As somebody in my early career, I'm usually debating whether saying a no to certain commitments can set me back in my career. Anyone have any?
That's a difficult one. I think, yeah. I guess you have to decide for yourself, why you feel you have to say no. If it's because that you cannot do it, or that you're not capable of doing it, then yeah, you should, say no. If it's because you're, too busy or it's too much work, then yeah, it's somehow work out with your boss, that, maybe have a suggestion that somebody else can take it on. I think that's also what people like. If you have a no, then offer a solution. Don't just say no, because then, yeah, what's next? So sort of, think that through. But it's a difficult question. It really depends on what's, what they're asking from you, and what is the reason that you're saying no. And if it was sort of unreasonable from the start, then you definitely should say no, right? But if it was a reasonable request, then yeah, you have to balance for yourself, what will I get out of it if I say yes, and what is the downside if I say no. So it really depends on the task you were asked to do, I think.
I think that, from an academia perspective, I think it's important, as it was mentioned, the other panelists highlight the importance of having a good supervisor, a good boss that understands what your needs are at the stage of the career that you're in, right? And what you can handle and what you cannot handle. And that's very important. But if something were to come your way to say, okay, this is an opportunity that presented itself, you can say, I think a solution is very important. You can say, okay, if I'm going to be doing this, then I think I'm going to stop. I'm going to remove myself from this specific committee just so that I can take over, because then you want to do a good job, right? You want to, if you are going to say yes to something, you want to ensure that you can handle it. You don't want to say yes and then don't do a good job overall because you are spread too thin. And with that being said, you need to also understand, what are the priorities in your career at this moment, right? So, in my case, my priority is my tenure, and I am going to do everything that I need to do to ensure that I am going to have my tenure, reach my tenure at the academy. So I am going to work towards that goal. So maybe, taking on other more of service like commitments do not work for me at the moment. But once I overcome that challenge, then I can maybe do that, right? Because I will have more flexibility and I won't be so stressed or so focused on, okay, getting the data, getting the experiment design and done, publishing the findings, right? So it's all about deciding, okay, what are my priorities at this moment, and what I can take and I cannot take. But I think, yeah, I agree, offering a solution is very important. Or saying I can do this, but if I'm going to take on this specific component, then I need to, something has to give. And hopefully it's not your family. You want to make sure that it's within the scope of your working environment.
Just to echo on that, I think that, you know, on my team, the people that I end up, you know, wanting to, you know, help them further their career, the people who can, you know, come through on things wholeheartedly. So if, you know, committing to something only allows you to do everything, you know, sort of half time or half as well, I think that, you know, that is never gonna, it's likely not going to, you know, allow you to advance in your career just because you took that commitment. More so would be if you said no to something that you couldn't, you know, take on or handle, but you gave 100% and were able to, you know, give yourself whole self to a one task or a few tasks. You know, the people that are in charge of those projects are going to be the ones that are going to say, you know, hey, so and so has done a great job, and I'd like to, you know, I think that they could handle something more responsibility or, you know, a bigger task or a bigger role. At least in my experience here at our company is that, you know, that's, you look around and, you know, people are asking you like, who on your team is a superstar? And it's often people that are, you know, able to come through 100% on something versus the people that are on 10 different projects because they said yes.
Thank you for answering. For the sake of time, we're just gonna move on to the next question. What tips do you have for standing out? Taking advantage of opportunities, advocacy, and mentorship is important, but what is your advice on finding those opportunities in the first place?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, what you can do is, you know, instead of, you know, well, not instead, but I guess in addition to doing your regular work, what you're expecting to do, what you've been hired for, is to do sort of a extra project, you know, that serves sort of a broader purpose that's not just specific for your project, but is beneficial to multiple people in your group, in your functional line. So maybe, you know, to help standardize a certain practice, something that, you know, saves everybody time. So I think coming up with some sort of you know, initiative or an extra project that will give you visibility outside of, you know, maybe that specific project that you're working on. So yeah, and I think you know, being proactive, you know, not just, you know, focus on what you're doing, but to think ahead. So yeah, so I think doing something extra and doing something that not necessarily expected. I mean, it's hard to be very specific here, but something like that. But when you can do something that benefits multiple people, not just yourself or that specific project team, I think that's always very much appreciated, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and don't underestimate the, you know, those extra tasks that are outside of, you know, your technical domain. Things like, you know, helping out your group with some diversity, you know, statistics or initiatives, things like that.
Yeah, for me in academia, you know, we are really, if you think about it, every faculty is like a one-man show, right? Like we are our own little startup, you could say, in the sense of we have our niche, we have our research, we have our work. We try to build that mini company within the big scope of what the institution is. And I think that for me, what I find fulfilling is collaboration with my peers, whether the collaboration is inside my department or outside my department. I have been very blessed to have had those opportunities, and that really, because then you bring that take on, okay, that a specific component to a project, and it makes things, you know, it makes the project even better, right? And it definitely allows you to meet people, to work with people, and to bring that commonality within the institution. Doing projects for me, I was initially saying about the more traditional line of projects versus more risk projects. So I love doing projects within the academy that are for the academy. So, you know, whether it's looking at data, you know, because I'm biomechanics, I like to look at the performance, at the performance of the midshipmen, their physical fitness, and I like to do projects tailored that way. I like to, and it's very important to to provide those findings afterwards, right? Everybody's interested in what findings did we get from looking at this amount of students, 4,000 students, and seeing, okay, there was some trend here. There was this, it seems like this is a positive outcome or a negative outcome. For instance, right now, one of the projects that I'm working on is developing a system, a guidance system for a military that was in a bombing accident, and lost his sight. A young guy that lost his sight, and he gets disoriented a lot within the academy. He knows it very well, but sometimes if he's not paying attention and is aware of his surroundings, he loses track of where he's facing, right? So looking at a project that allows him to use his own phone and run some code in the phone that we developed to tell him, okay, you are facing this direction, you are facing this specific landmark here, to the right you have this landmark, to the left you have this landmark. And those kind of projects are really welcome there. And it really motivates you too, right? You feel that you are actually contributing to the mission of the institution, and it's really fulfilling to do those kind of projects. They are like feel-good projects on top of the other types that are still that are contributing to science and are making their mark in the field, in the research field, but these kind of projects really, I think I'm very blessed to be able to carry on things that have that human interaction component, and that's what drives me a lot sometimes. So for me, is that.
Thank you. We are 3 minutes till 11, so I'm gonna have like one last question from Arena. There is no such thing as a perfect boss, nor are you ever a perfect leader. Which imperfections do you accept, and which have you confronted with your boss or yourself as a boss?
I think that I can start to say that, I think that the, sort of human imperfections are some of the ones that you accept. And, people can be disorganized, and, people can sort of forget things, or, think that, things like that. But the things that you maybe should confront, or that I have confronted, are things where, there may be, and truly a good boss makes honest mistakes as well, but, things where there may be sort of less inclusive. If you feel like it's sort of a violation of somebody else's, ability to feel comfortable. Even small things, like language that they use, or interrupting people, things like that. Those are things that, I think that I have confronted and would be welcome to be confronted of myself. Things that, honest mistakes like that. But, imperfections of like, oh, they just forgot about this, this thing that we had talked about in the past, is, they're often extremely busy, and you might want to just give them some benefit of the doubt on, some of those pieces where you wish that they were, I don't know, a little less human, right? Would be my short answer.
Yeah, yes, Rosa. Yeah, I think over time I've sort of learned my, less positive sides, and I think I've been trying to fix those. So I think I've been open to, seeing those, and then, being better about this. So, for example, I think maybe when I was starting out in my career, I wasn't always good regarding receiving criticism. I think I'm a lot better now. I definitely can take any criticism. I would say overall, when it comes to inclusiveness, I've always been very good there. Also, I think I would say delegating work was not always one of my strong sides, but now I have no choice. There's so much work to do. I have to delegate. So, so I think there are things, especially in the beginning of your career, that you have to learn, but over time you can definitely fix those. I mean, it's totally possible to really change your ways. Let's see what else. Yeah, well, I think the only thing that I still should work on, I feel, is that, I tend to be a bit of a perfectionist, and you have to again realize there's only so much time to like deliver this presentation or deliver this analysis, and not always looks for perfection, but really, you know, is this good enough, or what is the downside of not maybe fixing this, like, you know, maybe making this figure even more clear, or to even, you know, sort of improve the overall words you're using to describe something. So I think that's probably one of the main things is, you know, for me, is to work even more on, okay, you know, we just need to move on, we need to move fast. So perfection isn't the goal, but, you know, good enough. And that's especially important for pharmaceutical industry, where, you know, sometimes the pace is so fast, for example, for COVID-19 programs.
Yeah, I think to add to that, the good enough was something that we learned a lot when the COVID hit last year, and we all of a sudden find ourselves transitioning to a virtual environment. And I have never taught virtually. I didn't even had Zoom at that time, or I have used Google Meet randomly. So it was, you know, you try to be careful of okay, is this hard material that I'm about to present? How is that going to go with the students on a screen that having all these issues, connectivity issues, and it was certainly reassuring to hear from my, you know, our department chair saying at that time, you know, good enough is good enough, and we do the best that we can do under these circumstances. And it's important to give some grace when it comes to that to the students as well, because they are also at the other end. In terms of being perfect, I think that it is important. I do like criticism. It's not easy to accept it, but I do like good criticism. Sometimes criticism can just be, you know, just not really constructive. You know, you have to tell me why do you think I need to improve on these areas? And I appreciate that. It is, I agree, it's not easy to take on and to accept, but I think that that is important. I am a believer of respect, you know, in terms of the perfect boss. As long as there is respect, as long as, like Madison was pointing, if you're uncomfortable with the language that they use, or you are comfortable with certain things, I mean, it is important to speak up, and there is always a respectful way to deliver a very assertive message, and you should never be afraid to do that. And to ensure that you are respected as well, right? You should always feel that you are part of the table. That you should never feel that you should be in the corner. That you are part of the team. That you are one of the group. You are not any higher or any lesser. And I think that the environment does have a lot to do with that, which again is something that I do appreciate at the department that I am part of.
Yeah, and I think what's good is over time, I think companies have become better when it comes to that inclusiveness. They're very aware that, you know, everybody needs to have a voice around the table. They're much more aware of diversity. They're much more aware of making sure that, you know, management role are divided more equally between women and men. So I think over time, I think that has improved. At least in pharmaceutical industry, I've definitely seen that you know, that the overall speak up culture has improved a lot, and it really has benefited women. Yeah.
Thank you so much. For the sake of time, we have to end here. But we're so grateful that you can come share your thoughts on how to achieve work-life balance, how to advocate yourself at work. And then we're going to have a keynote session afterwards, so feel free to stay if you have time, and have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
So for the second hour, we're going to have a keynote on advocacy in life. And then Jody Davis, she's a systems engineer from NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. She's going to talk about technical leadership and advocacy experiences in NASA. And we're also going to have a Q&A session after, so please submit questions and help shape the conversation. Jody Davis, you can turn on your camera and then share your screen.
Yeah, Jody just let me know that there's some internet issues. Jody, are you able to share your screen or?
Yeah, can you guys see me?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, thanks, Rachel. I am having internet issues. It's the time of COVID and Murphy's alive and well today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my slides, but while I'm sharing my slides, I'm going to turn my video off just to save bandwidth a little bit. Okay, and then I can turn it back on when we're done. Do you want me to go ahead and start?
Yes. Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, let me try to share my screen here. Okay. Oh. And of course, I joined from the browser and I have to enable screen sharing. So if you have just like a minute, you can buy me while I do that, because joining from the browser actually was easier for me and it was a little better internet-wise. It'll take me just 1 minute here. Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's fine.
No problem.
I think that we could also read, we have Jody's bio. I don't have it up actually right with me, so we could read all about Jody's journey before she talks about it.
Yeah, I have the bio with me, so so we are gonna have Jody Davis for our speaker for the keynote. She earned, she's a system engineer and she earned her bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering from Embry-Rideau Aeronautical University and a master's degree in mechanical and aerospace engineering from University of Virginia. She has worked missions such as Cassini, Huygens, Mars Phoenix, and Mars Science Laboratory, specializing in entry, descent, landing, flight dynamics, and trajectory simulation of the Curiosity rover at NASA Langley Research Center. She served as a NASA Langley technical lead for the low-density supersonic decelerator flight test project. She also served as the James Webb Space Telescope optical telescope element and integrated science instrument module responsible engineer for the harness radiator at NASA, focused on system engineering and flight hardware integration and test. She currently supports the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope as the observatory lead interface system engineer. In this role, she is responsible for aiding the development, design, fabrication, test, verification, mission integration, launch support, and on-orbit operations in the area of technical interfaces. The Roman Observatory consists of the Wide Field Instrument, coronagraph instrument, optical telescope, assembly, instrument carrier structure, and spacecraft. And Jody's hobbies include flying recreationally, hiking, traveling, running marathons, and participating in national and international STEM outreach activities like our Mormon STEM Symposium. And she's also traveled to Tanzania and submitted Kilimanjaro in January 2018. That is so cool.
Thanks, Yupin. I actually think that is a really good segue, and that helps introduce some of the stuff I'll be talking about. So now I have share access with my browser for Zoom, so I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to turn my video off. All right. Okay, so you guys should be seeing my title slide, and now it is in presentation mode.
Yes.
Do you guys see this? Okay, great. So today I want to talk to you guys about technical leadership and advocacy. I know advocacy is a theme for today, especially advocacy in life. And I have experiences at NASA that I want to share, but that's not all of it. I also want to Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yeah, I think you cut out for a minute.
Okay, we will cross our fingers and keep going. So I can't not talk about the stuff at NASA.
I think we're losing the audio.
Jody, is there maybe a way that you can call in from a phone?
All right, I stopped sharing. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, we'll try this one more time here. Sorry about this.
No problem.
It's like,
I'm also wondering if it's easier, would you like to send us the slides and we maybe like that could help with the bandwidth and we could share it on our end?
yeah, what I can't, so the slides are about 450 megabytes because they have embedded videos, but that's okay. What I can do is rip out the videos and we can share it without the video just in case, because the rest of the content is still good and I can talk through it.
Yeah.
So let's try that. And who should I send the videos to? Or send
to
the
me.
While we're waiting, we made some trivia slides so people could try to win some prizes. So we can share some of those with everyone.
Let's share those.
Christine, do you have them up by a chance?
I do not, but let's find them real quick.
As you guys can see, this is all the fun stuff that happens when you do things on Zoom. It's not, we always think it might be easier, but it actually turns out to be a little bit harder. But it's okay, we'll figure it out. Oh, is this the wrong screen? Okay, so audience, we have trivia for you while we wait for Ms. Davis to get stuff working. So if you want to answer in the Q&A, and we can see who answers the most questions correctly, and we can give out some prizes that way. These are all based about women in STEM ideas. So our first question, what country had the first female in the world to be elected president in a democratic election? Was it Iceland, Germany, or Sweden? So if you just want to type in the Q&A chat, A, B, or C, and I guess we can give them like a couple seconds, I don't know.
Yep, let's do 10 or 15 seconds, and then we will keep track of who answers the most questions correct, and we'll email afterwards.
Yes. Looks like we got some answers coming in. All right.
Yeah, we have a lot of answers.
Okay, should we see what the answer is?
Yes.
That's the time. Okay, so the answer is Iceland.
Iceland.
Talk about that. Were you there for when she was first elected?
Oh, no.
Okay.
That was before I was born. But she is an amazing woman. She is a true female leader, very inspiring.
Awesome. Hopefully all the other countries can learn from this as well. Question 2, what percent of, Oops. I gave away the answer.
That's okay.
Oh, no.
That's okay.
All the answers are given. Okay, you know what? I've done something wrong on the trivia.
No, you're still sharing your screen, Colors, so
I'm
we can
still
still
sharing.
see
Okay.
all the answers. That's okay. Just
Well,
delete the true answers. We will keep track of those ourselves.
Yes. Okay. So did it quite turn out the way I thought?
Yeah, and we will email the winner afterwards. We have some very cool pieces. I don't know if you have noticed, like we have been showing some of them. We have a hydro popcorn maker, some super soft, nice, cozy slippers. Okay, are we back?
Yes.
Okay, I think well, it's okay. We can still ask this question. And when you type your answers, if you could put the number of the question. So for example, in this case, you would put 2 dot and then A, B, or C. So we can keep track of what question you're answering.
So question 2, which maybe you saw real quick the answer, but it's okay. It's still interesting to know. What percentage of researchers worldwide are women? Is it less than 30%, 30 to 40, or more than 40%? And so I don't no longer have the answers anymore, so we're just going to tell you.
We will wait for maybe 15 more seconds. Yeah, we have a lot of answers. And like someone pointed out, we actually showed the answer to this one.
Yes, we did. That was a mistake on my end. I thought I did the pop-up, but I guess I did not. So, all right, should we share the answer?
Yep.
It is less than 30%, unfortunately. So hopefully we can change that number, which is why we host events such as like this.
Exactly. We are working on increasing this number.
Right. Question 3. Which European country is home to the largest number of women researchers? Is it Germany, Latvia, or Sweden?
And let's give them 30 seconds.
Also, Ms. Davis, whenever you are ready, you can just let us know so we can stop sharing.
Okay. They're trying. I think
I got the slides, so I think we can.
Okay.
Well, just to end this question, the correct answer is Latvia, which I thought was really cool because I did not know that.
I agree.
Well, thank you guys for playing Women in STEM Trivia with us and dealing with our technical difficulties and my lapse in the answers. So we will keep track of who all answered and who got the most questions correct. And we'll be sure to email you with a prize.
All right, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, all right, this is great. So I think that I'm actually seeing presenter mode. Okay, great, thanks, Rachel.
Yeah, you can just let me know whenever you're ready to hit the next slide, Jody.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so I'm gonna keep my video on, and actually, to be honest, my work computer is much, much better than my personal computer. So I'm gonna keep my video on, and you guys shout out if it's getting choppy. So we'll, and this actually will be a little quicker without some of the videos, but I'll take you through it. Today I wanted to talk about technical leadership and advocacy. I know the theme today is advocacy in life. With everything that has gone on in my life, I can't not talk about my experiences at NASA. It is so amazing, some of the stuff that we've done as a team and I've been able to accomplish at NASA that's very relevant to being an advocate in your own life, let alone developing technical leadership, which is very, very important. Next slide. Okay, this is one of my favorite quotes of all time. It's something that I show to a lot of the people that I encounter and work with for STEM outreach. And it's a quote from Mae Jemison, who was the first African-American woman astronaut in space. And I'm going to read it for you because it's so important. Don't let anyone rob you of your imagination, your creativity, or your curiosity. It's your place in the world. It's your life. Go on and do all you can with it and make it the life that you want to live. So next slide. That quote I had thought about a lot in my own career journey and journey in life so far. I started off, I was like 13 years old, and I saw the movie Apollo 13 in the movie theater, which probably gives an idea of my age. And I was absolutely obsessed. I was obsessed with NASA, and I loved designing things, and realized after watching that movie that there's such a thing as aerospace engineering. You have your love of space and your love of design, and you take it and put it together and you get aerospace engineering. We all have deviations and kind of course corrections in our lives, right? So I actually, when I was in high school, became obsessed with flying. I started flying single engine planes when I was in high school, and I developed this passion for flying. And I would work after school, I would work at a hair salon, and I would use that money to pay for my pilot's license. No one of my family or my friends flew. It was just something I wanted to do. So I thought I wanted to fly, be a pilot, airline pilot for my career instead. And aerospace engineering just kept pulling at me. NASA kept pulling at me. It was something I was very passionate about in my heart. And I said, okay, you know what? Let me check out. I went to Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University for my undergrad. And Embry-Riddle is pretty much half pilots, half engineers. It's a very aeronautical focused university. And so I went there and I was able to fly for fun, but then I got my bachelor's in aerospace engineering and contemplated grad school. I knew I wanted to do some research, didn't know what I wanted to do or how I was going to get to NASA. So I ended up going to the University of Virginia for my master's in aerospace engineering and mechanical engineering. And I was able to do my graduate research at NASA. So I was like, all right, this is great, score. And I started actually working my graduate research on a program called Cassini-Huygens, in particular the Huygens probe. So the Huygens probe was special because, you know, Cassini-Huygens went around Titan and Saturn. And there was the Huygens probe that actually landed on the surface of Titan. Titan is the largest moon of Saturn, and it has an atmosphere. It's absolutely fascinating. And we helped, the Huygens probe was part of the European Space Agency. And as NASA, they actually used my graduate research to pull in data to be able to predict the trajectory and radiative heating environment at Titan to give the European Space Agency a thumbs up or thumbs down for releasing the Huygens probe to into the Titan atmosphere. So we gave it a thumbs up, and in 2004 we landed on the surface of Titan, and I was hooked with NASA missions. So I'm like, all right, what do I need to do to keep working on these missions? So I actually turned my head to Mars, and I worked Mars Phoenix, which launched in 2007, landed in 2008. It was a lander. And then I worked Mars Science Laboratory. And that was in 2000, we launched in 2011 and landed in 2012, August 6th. And that was an absolutely amazing experience that I'll talk to you a little bit about. After that, I took a slight deviation and worked on a flight test called the Low Density Supersonic Decelerator flight test. That tested large payloads, sending large payloads to Mars, the technology that's needed to do that. Think of an inner tube around what we call an aeroshell, which actually makes the aeroshell going through the Martian atmosphere bigger. and you're able to land larger payloads. That flight test is going to be relevant for something in a couple charts that I'll mention to you, and that was called LDSD. Then I actually did another course correction, and I started working flight hardware on James Webb Space Telescope, and then now Roman Space Telescope. So next chart just circles the 3 missions that I want to talk to you about today and how that relates to my career and life lessons that I've developed so far. Next chart, yeah. So 2 key things, technical leadership and being an advocate. Technical leadership is absolutely critical. It's critical for the success of NASA missions. It's critical for the projects that you're working on. It's critical for your research, because technical leadership, to me, what I've learned over the years is it helps facilitate communication. It not only is something that you need to develop to produce a good product, but to have a well-oiled machine of a team working to accomplish your goals. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and then we'll talk about being an advocate in your own life and what you're passionate about, but as well as being an advocate for others and your community, and how you can tie that back in, circle back, and improve the way you work, improve your life. So we'll talk those 2 key things today. Next chart. All right, Mars Science Laboratory. So I'm assuming some of the participants on this call have heard of the Perseverance rover. And Perseverance rover was essentially a new twin of the Curiosity rover that we landed in 2013. And I got to be a part of the entry, descent, and landing team that landed the Curiosity rover back in 2012. A lot of similarities with Perseverance. Thank the universe that a huge similarity was the wild success of both of those rovers landing on the surface of Mars. So working on MSL, or Curiosity, I just started to develop that really hard foundation of a technical background. That is very important in your careers, to gain trust with the people that you work with, the integrity that you'll need, and it really comes from having that base of some technical area before you start moving up in your careers and advancing to the next level. So that technical base was really important for me. And on top of that, I can't even tell you how many lessons I learned in team building. Full disclosure, we had a lot of hard things we had to work through on our team, and we weren't always a well-oiled team. There was a lot of stress. When you are landing a multi-billion-dollar rover on the surface of Mars, let's just say personalities come out and you have to work through struggles with your team. And I really started to learn a lot about team building and leadership at that point. So in addition to the technical background and team building, I started to, at this point in my career, this was 2011, 2012, I started to dip my toe in the water of technical leadership. And before I talk about these pictures here, I'll mention that the last bullet, you can develop leadership skills even in the presence of adversity and other challenges. And I say that especially for us women in STEM, where I was given an opportunity to work on a technical leadership role at the same time that I was helping land Curiosity. And that was on the LDSD, or that flight test I was talking to you about a couple charts back. And I had my supervisor and my mentor at work. Mentors are very important to find in any way that you can, someone that you really trust. And it can be your boss, it can be a professor as well, to work with you and help build your next steps in your careers. I had a mentor and my supervisor that were very supportive of this next step in technical leadership. And I also had people that didn't think that I could do it. And I basically said, you know what, even though I'm working Curiosity, I want to work LDSD at the same time. I want to develop my technical leadership skills, and watch me do it. And so you kind of have to trust in yourself that you can take on this challenge and move from a frame and perspective of fear to one of, hey, what if it works? And so that's what happened to me during the Curiosity landing. I was working a whole other flight test program in which I was a lead for it. And what felt good when it was all said and done, seeing the pictures on this chart here, I'll just talk a little bit about these. In the upper right-hand corner, I was in charge of calling out, if you guys had heard the Perseverance landing, we had a thing called Tango Delta Nominal. And this was something we came up with back in 2012 that I was looking at the data coming down, the velocity of the rover at landing. And you can see the mic that I'm hooked up to, it's called VOCA. And I was asked to look at the velocity at touchdown of the rover and say over VOCA if we were nominal, which means, as many of you know, as expected, as designed, or not nominal, which would be a whole nother thing. And we decided to do a kind of code it and use the phonetic alphabet and say, okay, touchdown, TD, or Tango Delta. Okay, so Tango Delta, that's touchdown. Is it good or bad? Well, if it's good, let's say Tango Delta nominal. So in the video that unfortunately I won't be able to show you today, but you can actually find it on the web, it's online, you can hear playback from that night and you can hear me say Tango Delta nominal. Only the folks in the room, and I know you probably can't see my cursor because Rachel is sharing her screen, but where all the folks are cheering in the bottom left hand picture. Before they started cheering, when I said Tango Delta nominal, everyone in the room already knew that we had touched down safely. There were 2 other calls after that we needed to make to be able to have Al Chen was the EDL phase lead, and Adam Steltzner to say, yep, touchdown confirmed, we're safe on Mars, and everyone cheered. And having that experience on top of working LDSD flight test project that I knew was going well, even though I had to work my you-know-what off, it was so worth it. It was absolutely worth it. And to be in that room, the room below that you see in that bottom left-hand picture, that room was the side room, aside from mission control, where we were all looking at the data. And the feeling in that room was absolutely incredible. It was euphoric and almost like a huge life event, like a wedding or something like that. It was one of the most important days nights of my life. And so since we're talking about Mars entry, descent, and landing a little bit and career development, the next chart, I just wanted to teach you a little bit about EDL because it's so exciting in my opinion. And Rachel, if you step to the next slide, it'll go through the PowerPoint animation. So just so you can get a sense of how crazy entry, descent, and landing is, we call it the 7 minutes of terror. And you come to what we call entry interface of Mars in this little capsule, mind you, it's 4.5 meters. And you hit the top of the atmosphere and you're going about the speed of a bullet from a gun. Okay, 13,000 miles an hour if you allow me to mix units. And you come into what we call the appreciable atmosphere of Mars, and you gotta slow down. For Mars Science Laboratory, we actually were a guided entry so that we would land where we wanted to land. We had to have guidance on board to steer us. If you go to the next chart, Rachel, we go through these range control and heading alignment phases that basically guide the capsule. Mind you, the rover is tucked up underneath. And we go through that guiding phase so we can hone in on the target. Then we deploy our parachute, okay? We used the same parachute for Perseverance rover, especially because this parachute was so successful for Mars Science Laboratory. This parachute is 19.7 meters in diameter, huge, and we deployed it at almost 2 times the speed of sound at Mars. That's Mach 2. And we actually, in many cases, this was such a new thing, breaking ground on new deployment conditions. We had to analyze the heck out of it. And that was a lot of my work, was doing the trajectory simulation for this sequence that we're going through right now, and looking at what is the worst case, what could happen, what do we need to do to tune the flight software to make sure that we are steering this thing in the right direction and deploying things at the right time. Next chart, Rachel. This highlights heat shield separation. So when you go through heat shield separation, it's basically taking the lens cap off of the vehicle. And at that point in the video, unfortunately, I won't be able to show you, but frankly, Perseverance had better cameras on board. So please Google the Enter, Descent, and Landing video, and you'll see there were cameras on the rover and on the descent stage that helped us see the ground. And you can see this in the video, and it is absolutely amazing to see those views of space and watch the heat shields separate and fall away from us. Then the next chart, you're in the back shell that's attached to the parachute. You got to get rid of it. So you deploy the rover, and the rover's tucked up underneath. There's jet engines that are on the descent stage that power us, next chart, that power us to what we call a sky crane maneuver. And when we get to sky crane, this also in 2012 was brand new to do this on Mars. Perseverance executed it perfectly and perfectly. And you basically reel out the rover on umbilicals and lines, and you drop it to the surface very gently, hence the touchdown velocity. That's where I called out Tango Delta Nominal. And then you cut away the lines of the sky crane that attaches the descent stage to the rover, and the sky crane flies away. And so the next video that I had for you guys was just going through that and showing you the energy of the room that night when we landed. So hopefully my excitement is helping you guys understand what that felt like. The next chart shows a picture of us at landing. I mean, some of us were like sweating, and you had grown men crying because we had worked on this. I worked on this mission for about 7 years. To get to this point was like the best wedding you've ever had to plan, and then you get married, let's say, some life-changing event like that. That was that night, and you can see the whole team there. The theme with this and the next couple of pictures that I'm going to show you, it's about teamwork as well as that technical leadership. Okay, next chart. So James Webb Space Telescope, I took sort of I guess you could say a 90-degree turn, and I said, all right, Mars Science Laboratory did that, got my technical background, started working technical leadership on LDSD, now what? And frankly, I was in sort of a state of confusion on what do I do next in my career. And you guys will come across this. You're gonna come to a crossroads or just sort of uncertainty that you don't know what to do next. And what I ended up doing was I said, you know what, I need to do something completely different. I need to get out of my comfort zone. And I started working on, through a leadership program actually at NASA, I was able to be a part of the James Webb Space Telescope integration and test team. So working with the hardware. In the picture over to the right, you'll see me in a bunny suit. And I'm working on what's called the harness radiator of the James Webb Space Telescope. And that is a critical piece. If you, Rachel, I don't know if it's possible to show your cursor on James Webb in the lower left. So in the lower left, lower left, there's it's pointing to the instruments. In the back there is where we have 4 instruments on the James Webb Space Telescope. The primary mirror for James Webb is 6.5 meters. It's huge. And that primary mirror and these instruments and this gigantic sun shield that's below that gold primary mirror is a telescope that's about the size of a tennis court that will be launched out to L2, the second Lagrange point, about 1.5 million kilometers from Earth. And we are going to look at the first stars and galaxies that were formed right after the Big Bang. So you're talking catching light, catching photons in these instruments that are about 13.5 billion years old. And what that's going to do, it's an infrared telescope, so it's going to be able to help us essentially peer through the cosmic dust when these first stars and galaxies were first formed. And with infrared, you can see more clearly than in visible wavelengths what those stars and galaxies look like, especially stars in a particular galaxy of interest that otherwise would have been clouded looking in visible wavelengths, like let's say an image of Hubble that you get back. So you can see in the bottom right picture how big this telescope is, and that isn't even, I would probably say, like maybe 1/5 of the team that works on James Webb. So I was able to be a part of that and exercise my technical leadership skills. And I was able to actually cultivate and lead a team that then propelled me to the next level. And communication here, just like with all other projects that you're working on in your research, very, very important. We had many, I'll say, small mishaps in the clean room that we had to work through and fix. And some of them resulted from communication issues. Things like that come up, especially when you're working these very complex missions. So the next chart would have been a video. Yes, it would have been a video, but this is another, going with the theme, I should say, of showing your team. This was my team when we integrated the harness radiator that sat behind. You can see it's kind of what you're looking at in the top center right of this picture is the back of the telescope where the instruments are. And then of course the front is the beautiful gold. They're actually 18 gold coated hexagonal mirrors. And the team that you see there, I am in the lift that is blue, farthest to the left, kind of on the edge of my seat in the corner of that lift, waiting as my team of technicians are installing the harness radiator. This wasn't the whole team, but it was a good chunk of it, and we successfully installed that harness radiator, and it was another incredible moment of my life, because knowing that that harness radiator is a piece of James Webb that's going to be launching this Halloween this year, which is why I have my James Webb polo on. It's going to be crazy to say that I worked on something that will be up in space, whereas before I was kind of in the analysis and simulation world. This is in the flight hardware world. So theme here, good communication, and then take on challenges that you didn't think that you could. You know, it's something like stepping out of your comfort zone. It's called a comfort zone for a reason, and it's really the way that you grow. The next chart is where I'm at now. So I worked on James Webb Space Telescope, and it's going to be launching soon. So about in 2017, I was like, all right, what's next? What can I do? Well, I stepped out of my comfort zone again, and this is the last bit on technical leadership before we talk about being an advocate. I'm now the Roman Space Telescope Observatory Interface Lead Systems Engineer. Is kind of a mouthful. but it's a new challenge that I've taken on with more responsibility. And one thing I wanted to take away, you guys to take away here, is that you are not going to be the person that knows everything in the room at all times. And I've really had to learn that with this job, in that I have to rely on my team of, as a systems engineer, my thermal engineers, my structural engineers, my optical engineers, because I really know very little about optical engineering. And it's a telescope. So you have to be able to know the right questions to ask, have the courage to understand what you don't know, and try to go find the answers so that you can learn what you don't know and make yourself better, and really rely on your team. So those aspects of technical leadership, I think, are very important, especially to build these huge missions or a small project that you're working on. All of the same skill sets apply. So the next chart, I'm just going to talk about this for like 30 seconds. I didn't have a video on Roman Space Telescope. We're planning on launching in 2026. And what's cool about Roman is that it's 100 times bigger field of view that we have for Roman than Hubble. And you can see in that left hand, upper left hand figure, very faint, you can see a small square that says Hubble. That shows you the small field of view that we had for Hubble. And even though Roman Space Telescope is the same size as Hubble, the instrument that we have on board, wide field instrument, gives you literally that wide field of view. So it's more bang for your buck in surveying the universe. And basically what we're going to be doing, the pie chart that you see below the field of view, is the makeup of our universe. And there's a lot of dark things there, dark matter, dark energy, right? All the things basically the scientists joke around and they say, if we say dark, it means that we don't know enough about it. So all of the dark matter and dark energy, Roman is going to be characterizing what that dark energy is and what it and in hopes to help be able to inform us on the expansion of the universe. And on top of that, we have a coronagraph instrument technology development on board that's going to be taking images of exoplanets and possibly characterizing their atmosphere. So I think it's a pretty cool telescope to be working on now. So who knows where this'll take us. And then next chart, now we're switching gears. So in the last few minutes that I have, we're going to be talking about advocacy. And the reason I think this is so important, kind of akin to technical leadership, being an advocate in your own career and your life in general really is another thing that helps propel you to the next level and actually give you fulfillment in your life. I had a thought when in 2017, I'm like, you know what, I had been through a lot in my life, personal things, and I was like, I need again to get uncomfortable, and I need another challenge. But I was taking on a work challenge, as you know, we just talked about Roman. I'm like, you know, one of my girlfriends who works at Johnson Space Center said, hey, what about climbing Kilimanjaro? I was like, you know what, I'm in. All right, let's do this. And so talk about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my whole life. It taught me a lot about patience and being an advocate for those challenges, and pushing through those challenges is applicable in your personal life, and you can work that into your career as well. It helped make me, as we were going along, let's see, like 6 to 8 hour ascending hikes through sleeting rain and whipping wind. It really helps that you make the best out of the worst situation. And you can be a total, you know what, and be angry and mean and ornery. Or you can just say, you know what, everyone on my team of people, that's in the lower kind of center picture there at the Kilimanjaro sign, that was the folks that we climbed with. everyone's in the same position. Everyone's uncomfortable. So you have a choice on how you want to react with that. So it was absolutely amazing. And then we slapped a NASA meatball on the Kilimanjaro sign there. That's kind of hard to see. Absolutely incredible. So next chart, that led to my next experience. I thought, you know what? I fell in love with Africa. And I'm like, what can I do in Africa for STEM outreach? And I was like, oh, you know, I have to go back there. I have to go back. How can I be an advocate? I was already doing STEM outreach nationally, everything from working at my local elementary school to giving a talk in Buffalo, New York. And so I'm like, how can I reach out internationally? And I actually went and Googled Africa STEM nonprofits, and on the Wikipedia page looked at Tanzania and found a group called Project Inspire. Literally a Google search that now has led to a lifelong relationship with these amazing people at Project Inspire. I raised money, paid for myself to go out, and for about 2 weeks did outreach in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. You guys, I had no idea what I was in for. My heart was so full. I had goosebumps when I would talk to these kids that I went and saw. So brilliant and so amazing. And it opened my eyes that we have to spread passion for STEM, and especially amongst us women and girls. And you can see the girls in the right-hand picture were so excited. They were about 8th grade. They were so excited to talk to someone who worked at NASA, and they were absolutely brilliant and had pretty impressive questions when we were starting to talk about dark matter. And so it's just, you never know where it'll take you, but if you promote that passion and you spread the passion for STEM or whatever your passion may be, you can be an advocate for your community in addition to being an advocate for yourself and your cause. Next slide had a video, but this is really just sort of a collage of some of the interactions that I had with some of the students that when I start to think about it, it makes me want to tear up. And it's with these experiences, you never know where they're going to take you. But you just have to make that kind of first step of like being uncomfortable and wondering, will this actually work out? Because there was a lot of trust that I had to put in these folks at Project Inspire too. So next chart is kind of wrapping everything up here and sticking with the common themes that we've had talking about leadership. The technical side of STEM is only a small fraction of your overall success. When I was at, for example, Embry-Riddle, and I'm working on what we call capstone projects or our senior projects. We had actually worked with my team on a telescope that deployed on the dark side of the moon. And I really didn't know at the time that it's not just about the technical development there, but also working with your team. And do it early. Really exercise those communication skills in your research with the other people that you're working with. And then of course, in your career in the future, employers are really looking for people that can communicate well. And so don't focus so much on that technical side of STEM. It's very important, but it's not everything. And it's never too late to start developing those team leadership skills. I actually have, and feel free to reach out to me, I have a whole list of wonderful books to read that help with leadership development. Don't quit learning. Just because you might have graduated undergrad with your graduate degree, you're in a postdoc right now, I am still learning in my career, and I've been at NASA for 15 years. So it's just something that we need to keep doing. And it can be something as little as watching a special TED Talk. It doesn't have to be much. And then the last slide, Rachel, if you hit that, focusing on advocacy. you would be surprised, especially as a female in a still male-dominated career field, you would be surprised at how much you can accomplish in your career, even though you might doubt yourself. I doubt myself even to this day, but it's something that I pause, I recognize, and I say, okay, why am I thinking these things? Why am I feeling these things? And try to come at a situation or an issue or a thought without fear, trying to put that fear aside, because in the end, you are your own advocate in your career. You're your own advocate in your life. And it doesn't mean that you have to have all the answers and you need to know what your next step is. Reach out to others. I mentioned mentors. Along the way, for each phase of my career life and my life in general, my dad is one of my big mentors in my personal life and career life too. You need to have those people that support you and that you can reach out to and say, hey, can I use you for a sounding board? What do you think of this new opportunity? Do you think it could work? I don't know how many times I've asked that of my mentors in my career and my peers. It doesn't have to be someone that's higher up on the career ladder, so to speak. So as long as you continue that learning, right? Be open and be curious about your career and your life in general. With life challenges, it all is linked together and you'll surprise yourself. So the last chart is just a question that I posed to you guys. Where will your curiosity take you? And here's some resources. My information is at the bottom. I'm giving you my NASA email address if you need to reach out to me. I do get a lot of emails, but I am more than happy to help you guys, especially if you guys need a sounding board. And there are some of the other missions that I've worked on, resources for that as well. So I think hopefully we didn't go over time too much, but and we have time for some questions, but that's all I had today.
Thank you, Jody. This is really inspiring. I personally watched the Persevere Landing on Mars live, so I'm really excited to see you and the work it is. It's amazing. We do have questions from our attendees. So Emma's asking, what is the best move to help rebuild a destroyed career?
I guess that's a really good question. And you said destroyed?
Destroyed career.
Okay. I think it all depends on how you frame it. And if you were to say, okay, let's say you took a wrong step, or let's say you burned a bridge with a company or a particular individual at work, you can start fresh. And I think that actually might be a good opportunity to take a look at, one, what are your passions? Two, what are you good at? Is it the same field, the same career? And try to change your approach. You know, Einstein said one of the definitions of insanity is doing the same thing over and expecting different results. So I think if you look at it not with a frame of mind of fear, but okay, this is an opportunity for me to clean slate, fix it, let's rework it. It might be a vague answer, but I think it's just stepping away from that frame of mind of fear and treating it as a new opportunity to maybe find something that actually works better.
Yeah, sometimes you have to change how you perceive things and then step out of your comfort zone and keep challenging yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, we are about to get 12, so it's right on time. Thank you, Jody, again. This is a really great talk. And I am going to questions. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, Jody. This was a really inspiring talk. And thank you all for joining us for the past 2 days. We are really happy to see how many have been able to join us. And we, of course, want to thank our sponsors for supporting the event and making this possible.
And we also want to thank once again, our organizing committee from last year and this year and all the work that's been put in. Christine and I know that this couldn't have happened without all of your guys' hard work and dedication, and we're so grateful to have such an amazing team. We also really want to thank, once again, our advisor, Christine Kavanaugh, for all of her support and her backing and constant communication and help. Encouragement, as well as Dr. Roshni Rao for helping us get Swati Mohan to speak and for all of her support and promoting the Women's STEM Symposium, as well as of our tech support. We had Peter today and from the Whiting School of Engineering helping us get this webinar situated. And we also appreciate, like Christine said, the audience for coming today and also, putting up with some technical difficulties that sometimes we end up having with Zoom, but hopefully you guys still enjoy everything that happened and, getting to hear all these amazing speakers that we had. And yes, thank you also to our speakers, all of our keynotes, all of our panelists. We know how busy they are and taking time out of their day to come talk to us. We were all very inspired, and I think Christine and I are both very invigorated and ready to go out there and, keep making strides in our fields, and we hope you guys feel the same way.
Definitely. And then don't forget, sorry, you want to
No, you're right. No, you're
Don't
good.
forget to join us in GatherTown. That's starting right now, the networking and poster session. We have 25 super cool posters. The poster presenters will be there to present their posters. You can use the QR code, but we recommend joining from a browser. That's based on recommendation from GatherTown. You should have just received an email from us with a link, so you can click the link in the email. It will take you directly to GatherTown, or just type this into your browser. And we hope to see you all there.
Yes.
Thank you again so much.
Thanks, guys. See you at the networking session. Peter, I think we're going to end the webinar and head over to the Gather Town.
Okay, good luck and have fun with that.
Okay, thank
If you have any questions or need anything, just let me know, okay?
Okay, would you mind, like last time, switching me back to host so when I end it, I can get the video?
Absolutely, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, absolutely. You ladies have a great rest
time.
of your evening.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you, Peter.
Bye.